Hi, I'm Christine Gilfillan. I'm the Associate Director at Berks Women in Crisis. Welcome to our story series, The Place You Start. My guest today is Missy Zimmerman. She's the president of our board of directors. And Missy just retired recently after
40-some years of
40-some years at the Berks Visiting Nurses Association. Missy's also a direct service volunteer in our safe house, so she wears several hats at the agency. So you're wrapping up your term as the president of our board of directors in September?
That's correct, yes.
I believe. When did you decide to get involved with Berks Women in Crisis, and why, or what was the impetus for that?
Well, I've been involved a little over 6 years, and my involvement actually started in the domestic violence movement because of my mother. My mother was widowed at a very young age, and much to my surprise, in a phone conversation we had after all the 5 children got out of the house, she announced to me that she was serving as an emergency shelter in the small town she lived in. And after I took a deep breath and said how dangerous this could be, and was this really a good idea, she said, if I can't do it, then who's going to do it? And that kind of piqued my interest. And my career involved over 35 years in the human resource field, so unfortunately, as an employer, we had numerous employees who were victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, so that piqued my interest. And then one day, somebody who was on your board, and a very dear friend of mine from a prior employer years ago, said, so do you have any time on your hands? Would you be interested in a board? And I came and talked to Mary Kay and was very interested, and that's how I started.
Wow.
6.5 years ago.
That's awesome. And what a benefit that's been for us as well, you know, especially working with you the last few years as the president.
Oh, thank you.
So what do you think is the most, how has this changed your life or changed the way you see domestic violence or the work that we do, this hands-on experience?
Well, I think that even as a board member, it's hard to really understand what the staff go through and the level of trauma that the residents go through. I think as a board member, you sit back and you kind of get reports about things, so you don't, sometimes it's hard as a board member to always understand what you all are doing. When I decided I was going to retire, I decided that I needed to do something that was going to fill the void, so to speak, in my life of working full-time. So I entered your volunteer training program, and I have to admit I was kind of blown away. It was a little intimidating to begin with at 60-some hours, and I was still working at the time, but I learned so much. And I think the difference for me, and the reason I picked the safe house, is I didn't want to sit and file papers. I'm used to people contact, and so being in a safe house kind of serves in the same function as an HR person. People come to you and want something or are complaining about something. So it seemed very similar. And I love working with the women and helping them to the best of my ability as a volunteer. And I get lots of hugs from the kids, so that's pretty special.
I know, I saw that right before we came here.
I did.
That was so great.
I got a hug from one of our residents, kid who came up and saw me. So yeah, I really like it.
So is your mother still alive?
No, unfortunately, my mother passed away a few years ago.
I wondered if you'd ever had a chance to talk with her about your own involvement.
I did, and when I told her I was coming on the board, she said, you know, as only moms can do, because they can always make you cry, you know, I'm so proud of you, I'm glad that you're giving back. I was a kid of the 60s, and we were raised that we needed to volunteer a lot, and so it made her proud, which was good, thankful, and she was glad that I was carrying on her wish to be involved in the women's movement. So,
that's wonderful. So not all board members, or not most, make the transition from board member to active volunteer. So I think that we're really grateful that you've chosen to do that and bring that sort of both perspectives, because board members also have to, you know, there are boundaries there as well. So that's probably been an interesting thing.
It has been. For
you to navigate.
It has been. You know, I think as a board member, you have a certain amount of distance from the activities that go on at BWIC. So when an issue comes up at a board meeting, and sometimes board members like all board members, we're all volunteers, but we come in for a board meeting and then we leave. And so we don't always remember from time to time why something is an issue, or maybe be terribly sympathetic as to why it may be an issue. And I think being involved in the Safe House has allowed me to interject, maybe not always well appreciated by all my fellow board members, that this is a serious matter and we need to address it and be supportive of the staff. So I think it does. I think it brings a very different perspective. I'm trying to encourage board members to think about volunteering more. I think it's very difficult to make the commitment of time of the volunteer training program, which I understand why it needs to be, but I think that's very difficult for people to kind of balance that in their life and be able to do that. So maybe in the future, hopefully, my plan, even though I'm going off the board in September, is I've developed a lot of personal relationships with a lot of the board members, so I intend to continue to nag them about volunteering. So they'll probably run when they see me in the future, but I hope they do.
I don't think that they will.
I hope they do.
I think I attend board meetings, and I think it's been a great sort of bridge between staff and the board. And some of the activities we've done recently, bringing staff and board together, have been good bridges as well. Because I do hear more board members getting a little more involved in some of the day-to-day workings of the agency.
Good. I'm glad. I think it's been an interesting experience. I think it's always, I admire the staff in the Safe House because I'm sure they weren't necessarily wildly overjoyed about the board president showing up as a volunteer. I thought it was a pretty nice person, but I can understand their hesitation. But I think we've kind of all become friends, and several of the volunteers. And I love the interns are there most of the time, and they're young and they're energetic and they're fun to be around as well. So
that's wonderful.
Hopefully we'll have more in the future board members that become more involved. That would be my goal.
We might with your modeling.
Well, I hope so, but we'll see.
So what else would you like to do? I mean, do you think the Safe House is your place as far as volunteering going forward, or do other areas interest you as well?
Oh, gee, I do like the Safe House a lot. It's kind of a fixed schedule for me, so I can kind of plan the other volunteer activities because I volunteer elsewhere as well. So the structure of the schedule kind of works for me. I probably would consider maybe participating in some sort of educational events because obviously as a human resource person I did a lot of education, so that maybe would be something with young people. I know we've done events with junior high school students and things like that, so maybe that. Just as long as I don't have to file papers. I'm not really interested in filing papers. Did enough of that.
We're trying to lessen the amount of paper we have, but it's never going to completely go away.
No.
Well, we really appreciate the perspective that you bring and the way that you've been active with the board and also getting to know better what the staff is doing. We've appreciated so much everything that you've done.
Well, thank you.
For Berks Women in Crisis. And I know that the board will give you a proper send-off.
Oh, well, gee.
When you go. And thank you so much for agreeing to be on this program with me today.
You're quite welcome, and it's a pleasure being involved with Berks Women in Crisis. I really enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to The Place You Start. We have guests stopping by each week. Check in again for more stories at berkswomenincrisis.org. And be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter.